When I ask you about a daily driver, what comes to your mind? Well, obviously it's the car that you drive every day, but it's not that simple. You see, because everybody's needs are different, any vehicle you see out there on the road today is probably somebody's daily driver. So how do we nail down this very specific type of vehicle? I did some thinking about it, and I came up with 4 categories of daily driver. Category number 1 is your traditional beater with a heater daily driver. We've all seen these on the road before. These are the cars that you buy cheap in the fall and you sell them again cheap in the spring. They've been through more hands than the breadbasket at Olive Garden. The body panels are an inch away from falling off because of rust, but they keep on running and they don't know how to quit. Category number 2 are the gently used, or my personal favorite term, certified pre-owned daily drivers. These are the cars that roll off of that used car lot, usually with some type of short-term warranty, but hey, it's better than paying new. Which brings us to category number 3, the brand new daily driver. These are the cars that roll off of that sales lot. They've got the 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, so you can have peace of mind because you had to finance the darn thing for 7 years. But then there's a 4th, very special kind of daily driver. Now, whatever category your daily driver falls under, it still has to meet several very important criteria. Number 1, it has to be economical. Number 2, it has to be versatile. And number 3, most importantly, it has to be reliable. Now, we have one of these very special, reliable daily drivers, and that's what we're going to go through in the video today. My name is Big Mike. Welcome to the channel. This is Everyman Auto. If you were in the market for a new Chevy back in 1997, you may have noticed that for the 1998 model year, the S10 Blazer was being offered with a whole new trim package. This package included gold accented custom alloy wheels, custom striping, and an upgraded custom leather interior. Now, this in and of itself is nothing new. Automakers have been making custom versions of their vehicles for, well, forever. What was interesting was that they called this new trim package the Trailblazer. Now, the engineers and the designers and the marketing people over at GM's truck division were a wily bunch of guys and gals. And by calling this trim package the Trailblazer, they were actually planting seeds that would grow into a brand new platform that would hit the market in 2002, called the GMT 360. Now, when the GMT 360 hit the market in 2002, it did so under a variety of names through a variety of automakers. Isuzu gave us the Ascender. The Buick Rainier was also introduced, and Oldsmobile was still around at the time, and they introduced the GMT 360 as an updated version of the Bravada. GMC offered it as the Envoy, but without question, the flagship of the GMT 360 platform was the Chevrolet Trailblazer. Let's go have a look. This is my daily driver. This is a 2004 Chevrolet Trailblazer EXT. That's the extended cab variant. It seats 8. It has 193,000 miles on the original motor and transmission and has been remarkably maintained for the last 20 years. In fact, I'm only the second owner of this particular Trailblazer. Now, despite being well maintained for 2 decades and at almost 200,000 miles, you're still going to get some day-to-day wear and tear on the exterior and the interior. So that's what we're going to address. What I'd like to do is take you on a tour around the vehicle, show you where the problem spots are, and show you how we're going to address them. Let's get started. Here at the front, we have a lot of things we're going to need to address. We have this cracked cross piece of trim here that's going to need to be replaced, so we're going to be doing some painting. We have these old pitted headlights that, to be honest, I don't think I want to repair. So we're going to replace these with something that's new and a little bit more modern and help bring this Trailblazer into the 21st century. We're also going to address the scuffs and scratches on either side of the front bumper cover. And of course, we're going to need to address this faded gray trim. We've all been there. You're pulling into a parking lot, or you're pulling into your driveway, or pulling into your garage, and you hear that terrible nails on a chalkboard sound that tells you you just scraped up against something. Or worse yet, you don't hear a thing, but then you wake up the next morning and you come out and you find this. Well, we're going to try sanding this down and blending this in with some matching paint to try and get rid of this huge gouge on the door that goes actually from the front of this door all the way to about midway down the back door. We also have a bunch of myriad of smaller scratches, and that was because what hit this truck was a tree branch when the previous owner was pulling into their driveway. We're going to try to correct those. These have been touched up with touch-up paint, so we're going to need to try and smooth that out and see if we can't blend that a little bit better. Let's move on. On the back of the vehicle, there are several things we're going to have to address. Starting from the top down, the windshield wiper assembly is cracked, worn, faded, chipped, starting to corrode. We're going to try and salvage that, or worst case scenario, it'll get replaced. Moving further down, the license plate frame. This is also chipped on the edges and starting to show the wear and tear, so we're going to pull that out and we're going to paint correct that and make that look like new. Continuing on down, we've got the original dealer sticker. Now, I tried to find a replacement for it, but apparently the dealership no longer exists. So we're going to basically remove this and remove the glue that's left behind. Next, the Trailblazer and Chevrolet badges on the back are faded and worn. The black is kind of turned gray and chipped off in various places. So we're going to try and salvage that instead of trying to track down 19-year-old badging and paying a lot of money for them. The gray trim that used to be this deep, dark, luxurious gray has now turned into pale gray. So we're going to try and recondition this and get this back up to snuff. In fact, all the gray trim on this Trailblazer is going to need to be reconditioned. This is actually typical of these vehicles back in the day. They really weren't well protected against UV light. And then finally, we're going to drop the spare tire, take a look underneath and make sure everything's good there. Probably undercoat that, make sure that the spare tire wheel is in good shape and not corroding, and then make sure we can preserve that. And then finally, we're going to preserve the trailer hitch here to keep that from corroding here in the Midwest so that it's going to last for many, many years. These wheels are actually the original factory wheels from 2004, and they are in fantastic shape, so I'm not going to swap them out. However, we're missing some center caps, and this vehicle's only been sitting for a couple of weeks while we're prepared to shoot this video, but you can see that already the rotors have started to turn orange because I haven't been driving it. So we're going to use lithium grease to coat the hub of the disc to prevent that from rusting, and then normal driving will prevent the disc itself from rusting. We're also going to reach in here and paint the calipers. A lot of the newer modern vehicles have painted calipers, either red, blue, yellow, orange, whatever the case may be. So we're going to find a nice contrasting color that's going to allow those calipers to pop behind those stock wheels. Once that's completed, we're going to do a complete exterior detail and wash. This includes polishing and buffing, and then probably a ceramic coating of some kind to get rid of all the minor scratches that are all over the body. We're also going to try to restore the faded black trim on the luggage rack up here. After that, we're going to completely remove the leather interior of this vehicle, do a complete steam clean of the carpeting, a complete restoration and conditioning of all the leather, and a complete interior detail, trying to get this back up as close to factory as possible. Once that's done, then we'll take a little test drive. I'll give you my final thoughts. We've got a lot to do on this list, so let's get started. Now, removing the front grille on the 2004 Trailblazer is remarkably easy. So, here's what we're going to be dealing with. We have several tabs holding the grill in place. Here, up here, here, and down here. So all you need is a small pry bar or a screwdriver, and you just start popping them off. And just like that, the bumper is off. And now you can definitely see the crack damage that happened somewhere during this vehicle's lifetime. Here's the replacement grille, which we probably won't need. And here's the most important part, the trim piece. But as you can see, it's not painted. Following in the concept of keeping things simple, the headlight assemblies come out very easily. All you're going to need is a small pry bar or a long screwdriver, or, unlike me, really skinny long fingers, and you can pull them out. Now, for the ones that have been sitting in for about 20 years, they're probably going to stick a little bit, so you might need a little WD-40. At the top of the headlight assembly, you're going to see two little tabs. They're hard to miss because they're painted the same as the interior. There's one located right here. And then if you follow my finger, there's one located right back here. You can see it's got a little bit of surface rust on it. The one in the front, pretty easy. They just pop off just like that. The one way back there in the back, however, is going to take a little bit of trickery. So grab your pry bar or screwdriver and gently pull up. Now, the assembly can come out. Remove the assembly by starting on the inside and then pulling out. It's a little difficult to do with one hand, but there we go, and now the assembly is loose. And you can easily reach in and unplug all of your lights. All right, now there are going to be three main connectors that are going to have to be removed when you're removing the assembly. This 4-pin right here is located right here on the bottom. Immediately across from that here is the screw-in socket for your turn signal. And then up here is for the marker lights up here. In order to prep the trim piece for paint, we're first going to need to get our hands on a green scrubby, or you can use a sponge with the green scrubby head on it, and some 400 grit sandpaper. All right, in this case I used a damp sponge with the green scrubby head and just gently wiped along the upper edges of the trim piece. This is just to get the initial protective layer of material off of the surface of the trim. Now, you don't need to use a lot of pressure in this process, just let the scrubby do the work. After that, grab a microfiber towel and just dry it off real quick, and then it's time to move on to the sandpaper. When you have a piece of trim like this that has a lot of different angles and is not flat, you can take your sandpaper and actually wrap it around the sponge. This will allow the sandpaper to conform to the different angles and bends in the actual piece that you're working on. And again, remember, we're not using a lot of pressure, just enough to allow that sandpaper to move around the surface and give you a nice, even scuff. Once the scuffing is done and everything is nice and uniform, grab yourself some isopropyl alcohol. I recommend 70% or better, and spray that onto the trim piece and then wipe that off with a microfiber towel. You don't want to use water here because you want that to evaporate quickly and give you a nice, clean, scuffed, dry surface for the primer to adhere to. Now, we're ready for the first coat of primer. Before I started primering, I noticed that some storm clouds were rolling in and it looked like we might be getting some rain, so I decided to move into the garage to finish the primering and painting process. Now, when applying the primer, you want to do 3 coats. You want to do a light coat, a medium coat, and then a heavier coat at the end, and allow about 5 minutes in between each coat, just so that the next layer has something to grab onto. Once that's done, you should have a nice, uniform gray piece that's ready for paint. I let the primer cure for about an hour and then moved on to paint. Now, like primer, we're going to be using multiple layers with about a 5-minute interval between each layer to allow it to set and provide something for the next layer to grab onto. So once again, we're going to start off with a light coat, then move to a medium wet coat, about halfway through the painting process, I noticed that the color going onto the trim was actually a lot darker than the original color of my Trailblazer. When I double checked the paint code on the can that I ordered from Amazon, they gave me the same paint color, indigo blue metallic. But unfortunately, the paint code did not match the original OEM code on my 19-year-old vehicle. As a result, they sent me the indigo blue metallic, which is apparently darker than my original indigo blue metallic. So, quick run out to the store, and I picked up some Duplicolor indigo blue metallic that actually matches my OEM paint code. Let's see how close they get to it. After I realized my mistake, I stopped and let that wrong color cure for about an hour. Then I went back in, scuffed it up, and repeated the primer process on top of the old color. After that cured for about an hour, I repeated the painting process again with a light coat, a medium wet coat, and then a heavier wet coat with the Duplicolor indigo blue metallic, and immediately noticed that that one actually matched the color of my Trailblazer almost perfectly. I let that paint cure for about an hour and then applied 3 coats of clear coat. Now, those of you who actually have experienced painting components before probably see the error of my ways. Unfortunately for me, I had never done this before, and this was the result. We're going to let this cure overnight and then come out in the morning and see what we've got. Hopefully, it's going to turn out okay. There comes a point in time in any project where you have to drop back 10 yards and punt. After reviewing the instructions, I realized I made 2 crucial mistakes. The first one was I didn't verify the actual shade of the color by painting it on a piece of disposable material and comparing it to what was actually on the vehicle. The second one, the big one though, was the number of layers that I put on that piece of trim in rapid succession. It was a total of 14 layers of material by the time I was done. And so what ended up happening was you had the cracking, you had the bits popping off, and basically looking like general crap. So I had a choice. I could order another piece of trim and try this again, or I could take the easy way out. I took the easy way out. I went downstairs and jumped on the EMA supercomputer, threw on some television, grabbed some barbecue, and started shopping. I needed to order the headlight assemblies anyway, so I just ordered a replacement piece of chrome trim this time around. Also, because the bow tie is so faded and so badly pitted after 20 years, I decided to do something a little bit different. I ordered a vinyl wrap material with a carbon fiber design on it, and that's what we're going to do with the bow tie. We're going to turn it into a carbon fiber bow tie on chrome trim. I placed the order, and 4 days later, everything arrived. Let's go see what we got. All right, here is the new chrome trim instead of bothering with paint. And apparently, you can't order one of these without getting one of these. So what I have in front of me here are the original OEM headlight assemblies, and as you can see, they're foggy, they're pitted, they're scuffed. Could they be refurbished? Yes, absolutely they could, but I didn't want to do that for this video. I wanted to do something a little bit more modern. As a result, what I have here are these. These are LED headlight assemblies made by ACANII. And the nice thing is they're reasonably priced. They provide the LED bulbs for your mains and your high beams, and they're basically plug and play. There's only a little bit of wiring we're going to have to do, and we'll go over that as we do the installation. With the front grille and headlight assemblies removed, we can now turn our attention to the scuffs and scrapes that are currently on the bumper cover. On the passenger side, the scuffing isn't really all that bad. We're probably just going to have to do a little bit of sanding and then buff that out. On the driver's side, it's another story. It looks like something really scraped up into this part of the front bumper. We're going to be using 320 grit sandpaper to basically just cut this down to the primer. We don't want to go past the primer to the plastic, otherwise we'll have to treat it. But just going through to the primer will be all we need to do. As you can see, there are the scratches. They're pretty deep. So what we want to do is get them sanded down and out of there as much as possible. And again, don't use a lot of pressure. Let the sandpaper do the work, and make sure you have a fresh abrasive side pretty often so that you're getting a nice clean scuff here. There's still a little bit there, but these are pretty smooth. So we're going to keep going on these big ones right here. And again, as I said, right now we're going through clear coat. You'll see it change color like it did right here when you hit the paint. You go through the clear coat. Okay, and then there's the color. All right, so we're where we want to be right now with this. And again, I'm not using a lot of pressure. Very gently, just like that. All right, once you've got it scuffed up just like that, grab some water. Spray it down and wipe it off with a microfiber towel. And you should see a nice foggy image right here. That's what we want. We don't want it to be deep. We don't want to be able to feel those scratches with our fingernails. And then once that's done, you're going to want to grab some isopropyl alcohol, hose it off again, and wipe it dry. Just like that. Now the alcohol will do two things. It will dry quickly, as you can see here, but it will also remove any contaminants that are in the paint in the area you're going to be working. For lighter scuffs like this scratch mark here, I'm going to be using 800 grit sandpaper and essentially doing the same thing. On the passenger side, what we have is a large scuff area right here. So we're again going to use our 800 grit sandpaper and just gently scuff it. And what we're doing is we're scuffing clear coat. And once that's done, wipe it off. And now you can see where the scuffing actually is. So we're going to go a little bit more aggressive on this. I think I'm going to go back to my 320. All right, with everything now set, it's time to mask off our problem areas and get them ready for paint. Because we were touching everything while we were masking everything off, you're going to want to do one more alcohol cleaning bath over the entire area that's going to get paint. This will get rid of any residue that's left over, any residue you may have deposited while doing the work, and give you a nice clean surface ready to go. I just want to add something before we continue. There's no golden rule that says it has to be 3 coats. So once you're done with that 3rd coat and you let it sit for about a half hour, come back out and inspect your work. If it looks like it could use another coat or 2, by all means do so. Just make sure you give yourself about 5 minutes in between each coat to make sure you get a nice, even, steady look. That being said, it's been about a half an hour. Let's move on to clear coating. And we're going to do the same thing we did with the paint, which is 3, again, on average, 3 coats of clear coat. And then we're going to let it sit overnight and we'll see what we get. Okay, we sanded down the rough spots on the bumper cover. We did the painting, we did the clear coating, we let it sit for 24 hours, and we're ready to go and polish everything up. The first thing you're going to notice is no matter how well you are able to blend things in, you're still going to see a distinct separation line between the new material and the old material. So we're going to have to get rid of that. In order to do that, we're going to need a few things. We're going to need some microfiber towels. We're going to need a water bottle because we are going to be wet sanding. Our faithful household sponge with the green scrubby is going to come in handy. And then we're going to need various grits of sandpaper. We're going to need 800, 1500, and 3000 grit sandpaper. We're going to need a very aggressive foam buffing head. And then we're going to be using Meguiar's Ultimate Compound to buff everything out once we're done with the wet sanding. Once that's done, we'll move on to polish with a slightly less aggressive foam pad and see if we can get everything to blend in exactly the way we want it to. This was going to be the part of the video where I showed you how I wired up those brand new ACANII LED headlight assemblies. Unfortunately, the footage that we shot ended up being unusable, so I can't show you how we wired it up. You have several options, of course, so you'll be able to make that determination on your own if you decide to go with this manufacturer. That being said, since we can't show you that, let's jump right to the end, do all of our dismantling steps in reverse order, put the whole thing back together again, and see what we got. That's going to wrap things up for part one of this Trailblazer refresh. Links to all the items used in this video can be found in the description down below. And if you enjoyed this content, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. In part two, we're going to address that nasty gouge that runs along the passenger side of the vehicle, as well as another smaller problem that occurred a little bit further on down the line. Now, I do have an admission to make. The tips, tricks, and techniques that I used in this video, for the most part, came from other content creators here on YouTube, and it would be remiss of me to not offer shout-outs to those individuals, give credit where credit is due. The first shout-out I want to offer is to Steve Wright at Learn Online Video. Steve specializes in showing people how to shoot professional-style videos using nothing more than a cell phone. His site is a treasure trove of tips, tricks, techniques, and editing tutorials to make your videos look their best. Next, I want to give a shout out to Larry Casilla at Ammo NYC. Larry is a car detailer up in Connecticut, and he is an absolute wizard. The techniques that he shows on his channel are actually the same ones that were used to restore the bumper cover on our Trailblazer. The man is an absolute wizard. Head over and subscribe to his channel if you have not done so already. Third, I want to give a shout out to Alex Palmieri of Legit Street Cars. Alex has a lot of projects on the table, and you never really know what you're going to get. Fortunately for me, I found a video where he actually restored the rear bumper of an BMW Alpina. And the techniques that I used to paint the front bumper cover were taken straight off of his channel, and it worked fantastically. So Alex, shout out to you, and thank you very much. And finally, I want to give one final shout out, and that is to you. Without your liking, sharing, and subscribing, these channels wouldn't exist. It is because of your liking, your sharing, your subscribing, your supporting these channels that makes it possible for content creators to do what they love and share it with you. So from the bottom of my heart, from everybody here at Everyman Auto, I want to say thank you, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.